Hello everybody, Thy Lord Root here, and we are back for episode 9 of Let's Play Kerbal Space Program. I'm gonna go ahead and bring up our next mission. I've had recording this video, it seems like, well, the first time I recorded it, it didn't capture the video, and it was a fairly long mission. I'm trying to bring that time down, but second time, in addition to not recording any video, it didn't record at all, so hopefully it will record this time. But anyway, you can see we have a number of different things here. We have up here a docking constructor that I'll talk a little bit more about as we launch. I have a 6-port docking adapter that'll let us branch out our station. And then you may remember from the last video we have our new launch stack. This is the heavy version of it, but it is slightly modified, and in fact, it's very different in the sense that we have this fuel tank that's on docking ports, and you might ask, but why are we doing this? And the reason for it is that it would be really nice to get one of these jumbo fuel tanks up into orbit. So what I've done is I've taken the smaller 2.5 meter fuel tank, and I've attached it, moved a few things around, attached it to a decoupler, and my hope with that is that hopefully we will be able to get this entire thing into orbit and dock it to our station. So let's go ahead and start. So we'll hit launch here and we'll just go ahead and get started. So, one thing I will definitely do here is, I probably will not launch with MechJub, even though it would speed this up, and I am getting a little bit tired of re-recording this thing. But I will, use this orbit info to get into orbit so that, we don't have to consult the map as much. And I will, of course, get this thing up here so that we can get the space station, in a relatively close orbit. Don't know if we're going to shoot ahead or behind. The thing that kind of sucks is when I lost the video last time, I actually got a pretty good orbit. But we're kind of in a weird orientation. I don't know why. Hopefully we can reproduce what we did last time, though, so maybe that won't be too much of an issue. And, of course, I'm going to try my hardest to get a pretty decent orbit out of this, so, I guess what we need to do, first of all, is we need to figure out, where this thing is going to intersect with the space station. Last time, I got pretty close. I had my best docking in my last run of this that I think I've ever had. And I'm hoping I can reproduce that. That would be kind of cool. Of course, let's not hold our breath on this, but I mean, you never can really tell. I mean, it's, one of those things to where it just might work out. So, here's to hoping, And I can make a toast like that because I have an open can of beer right next to me, so that will definitely, make a toast like this mean something. So we're doing pretty well so far. I mean, we're going a little bit faster than I would like, but, all in all, I think we're doing alright. We're having to adjust for the weird angle of the nav ball here. But we are just going to ride this thing up as far as we can and discard our outer stages. Now this thing could probably get up a lot easier, without this heavy lifting stack. But on the flip side, you know, this does allow us to get that jumbo tank up into orbit, and I think I will talk a little bit about the jumbo tank because it's you know, the jumbo tank is actually um fairly interesting in that regard. I mean, I actually got this idea from an idea that was, you know, propagated in the 90s throughout science, like popular mechanics and everything like that, to where you basically take your spent um, external fuel tank from the space shuttle, and what you do with it is you put it up in orbit, and the idea is supposed to be that perhaps you can maybe you know, refurbish it into an orbital habitat or something like that. And that's a cool idea. Of course, you know, Kerbals can't live in fuel tanks, but we can put this to good use because we are, after all, building a space station. We are a little bit high there, and I think it's hard to tell if we're going to be ahead or behind. We'll just coast to Apoapsis, though, and hopefully, I'll set this as a target. We'll see what our closest encounter is, if we got a pretty good one. We'll use the rendezvous planner for that. I thought I did set a target. I guess I didn't. Our closest rendezvous is 85 kilometers. That's not bad. I mean, that is actually a little bit better. We are pretty strongly inclined, though. We're 282 degrees off, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that, you know, we're, very that we didn't have the world's best launch because of that angle that we launched at. And I think we're going to end up a little bit behind, to tell you the truth. I'll just get that periapsis up. That's going to hit our descending node. And I don't know if we're going to reach this as easily. See, that's 89 kilometers. Our apsis is a little bit higher than I want it to be. 171 is a lot higher. 134 versus 90. 21 kilometers. I mean, that's a pretty good, you know, pretty good thing. I'm just gonna leave that here. And then I'm going to add in another maneuver node whenever I get to the right point. We got plenty of RCS, so I'm going to use that to help us get into position because we're going to burn about 15 seconds in or so. And the idea is basically that, you know, we want to pull this as close in as possible. I mean, 18 kilometers is not too terribly bad. I mean, that's a pretty good start. Of course, once we change our inclination, I'm sure that that number will change somehow. And so we are going to do that, of course, at the ascending node. And of course, you know, we've got a little bit more than, you know, I guess more than 30 seconds here. But, I mean, we did pretty well, I think. I don't know how on target we are. We'll just burn forward just. Oh, we're a little bit off. We're at an apsis of 93 versus 36. How will that affect us? We'll correct for that later when we get to our periapsis. But right now, our main concern is getting this descending node down. So let's get this down as much as we can. And that is 0.02. Can we do any better than that? It doesn't look like we'll be able to, but 0.02 is pretty much on the money for us. And I do want to bring down after that. Well, first of all, how far apart are we? We're 42 kilometers, so I want to bring down our apoapsis just a hair. Maybe do 105 or so. When we get to apoapsis, then we'll we may actually get this in one orbit or pretty close. 126. Let's see what is at 125. How is this affecting our periapsis? Okay, let's get back to where we were. 36 will do. So we'll just get in position for this, and hopefully it won't take too terribly long to do this. I'm a little bit dissatisfied that I didn't get as good of a deal going on earlier, because I did have a pretty good orbit. I wish it got recorded, So speaking on the subject, y'all won't be seeing this project, the next video, because I'll be working on my first challenge with one of my friends here. He's a guy by the name of Papricot on YouTube. He's I call him Nathan, and he was talking to me one day, probably sometime last weekend, and he was like, I would really like to try a moon mission with with like no map view, no external view, no anything. And I'm like, that's actually a really cool idea. So we're calling this tentatively use the force mode. And I reckon if you don't get that reference, you probably want to hand in your nerd card or something like that. But the idea is when you fly this thing, you actually fly more or less by the seat of your pants. Where are we at now? 36 kilometers. We actually didn't do too terribly bad there. And when we get up here, we're going to lower our apoapsis, or our periapsis, just a bit, because we want this thing to meet up not ahead of us. We don't want this thing to get too far out of our control. And speaking of which, I probably need to burn retrograde pretty soon. But we want our new apoapsis to be fairly in line. We don't want to fall behind the space station. But yeah, we don't have much in the way of delta V at all here to worry about. And I'd say, that's just fine by me. Um, the question is, we're hitting this descending node. We might as well get ourselves to within 0 degrees or so. And this is a very fine maneuver that we're doing here. So I believe that means we're going to burn north. I'm just going to go a little bit faster than usual here. Try not, even though we've got tons of RCS fuel, I don't want to waste it. But we'll do that. That will put us within 45 kilometers versus 36.1. We're going to hit that node in another 3 minutes, so that gives us some time to, to deal with, this apoapsis issue here. So, we're going to be very close here. What is that? 5.1, can we do any better than that? 1.4. That is the best I think we're going to be able to do, so we're not going to be able to do much better than this, I don't think. 0.5, you know what, that's worth it. And that is not a very hard burn to make, it looks like. So, we'll just get to our descending node here. I guess it's actually our ascending node. Well, it was, formerly our descending node, but now, once we put the maneuver in, it's our ascending node or whatever. So, yeah, it'd be kind of nice if we could see the previous, sort of node at 0.0. Is that just because of the... Cool. How has that changed us? Can we get any better at our orbit? 0.9, 0.4, and asking for more maybe, a pipe dream for us. 0.6. We get within 0.4 though. We're pretty close in. I mean, it's a better deal than, what we would have right now, and we can level that out. Now, where is prograde? I do need to burn... Oh shit, I'm within the target. I keep on forgetting that. But yeah, we are now within, several seconds of making this burn, and we should be able to pull it off with very little problem, I think. So let's just go ahead and get that burn going now. It is taking a little bit longer than... No! No, 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 no! It's okay, we're still... I don't know, I don't like that apoapsis where it's at. I want to... You see, it would be good if, like, you could project where you're at. I think what I did when the video did not record last time is I think I hit the function key on my laptop. That probably will bring that down to closer to what we want it to. And I think we're not going to be able to do much better than this in terms of our, yeah, we're a little bit further off than I intended. But that's okay, we'll just burn prograde. And we will correct this orbit. I mean, it's not that the orbit that we had was, terrible by any stretch of the imagination. I think I need to use RCS for this because we're just not getting the, we're not getting the kind of, response we want out of this. I think if we use RCS, then we'll get more finely grained, a more finely grained apoapsis. And I mean, we're as far out as we are. I mean, it's not a horrible idea. So let's bring this down 0.6. That's better than what we had. I wonder if that's not bad. So we're just going to do this, and when we meet up again, we will make our closest approach and begin docking. And so hopefully, the docking, I've done it twice now using the method I decided I was going to use or whatever. We're still 2 meters away. Probably time to get into orbital mode. And we will, at this point we'll null out our velocity. And we will, do our thing. So let's, how much longer do we have? Let's get in the general area, because we're not going to get it perfect on. I mean, I think if we give ourselves about 15 seconds or so to, account for our deal, then we can very easily, null out our velocity. And we don't really care too much if our velocity is entirely nulled out, because as it turns out, that's very difficult to do anyway. And we'll just use RCS to get it down to a reasonable deal. So there we go. We're at least, very close in. And what happened to our target? That is a little bit bothersome. I guess I must have accidentally, deselected it or whatever. So yeah, we're going to, we're just gonna go down here. I'm gonna bring up my docking information. And we want to move towards our target. not away from it, so that means the target must be very slightly behind us. Wherever that may be. You know, I don't... Oh, there it is. I don't quite see it. At this point, I'm going to go RCS only. Just because of the fact that um, it makes more sense that way. And I'm going to go in at about 2K per second. Or you know what, 1K is really sufficient. There's no reason we shouldn't go in at anything other than 1K. Let's see. I want to go ahead and actually kill my Y, even though that is going to be a bit of an issue for us. But we're going to, if we go to this rendezvous planner, our final distance is going to be very close. In fact, I hope it's 21 meters. That could be a bit of an issue for us. So I think that means that we need to scale things down just a shade. I mean, if you ask me, this is still a fairly good attempt at, at doing a rendezvous. I just don't want to crash into that station because that is going to be a bit of an issue for us. So, the way that I was originally going to do this is I was actually going to dock 3 times, or 4 times. The first time being, more or less, with, our deal coming in. Have we reached our rendezvous point? Yeah, this says we're not going to get any closer. So we'll just null out our orbit. But anyway, or not our orbit, but our velocity. So anyway, I guess what I was going to say is that, originally I was going to make this so that, that we attempted to dock, in such a manner that, we would try to dock this fuel tank first, and then, we would attempt to dock the docking ring, and that is, I sort of thought about it, and I'm like, wait a minute, like, we have 4 other potential docking points that we could pick here. Why are we picking the one that, doesn't really make any sense? And I mean, you do want to sort of take the path of least resistance whenever you're doing this sort of thing. And so my thought was, why don't we use that docking adapter as a sort of mechanism for getting to where we want to get to? because then we could just drop it off and then take the fuel tank and then dock it, and that seems to work out a whole lot better in my opinion. As I mean, it goes without saying, we're not going to try and manually dock this thing. We just don't have the we don't have the necessary fuel, I think, to even attempt this. So we'll just, I'm gonna bring up smartass real quick, kill our rotation, because it is causing us to oscillate. You know, maybe it might even help if I turn on RCS to help stabilize that. Yeah, I mean, that that is going to be difficult to deal with, it looks like. And we've already, I don't know if it's the case that we've moved away from it. I think it's because our probe core or whatever has changed orientation. It's no longer facing towards it, but I'd say this is going to drift regardless of what we do. And you'll see that, like, when we have our tug here, it'll work a little bit better. But what I want to do is I want to begin refueling. I'm going to make it to where we have about 50 units of fuel left, hopefully. That was pretty much on the money. That surprised me just a little bit. And we'll just do the same here. Try to get it in line. There we go. And I'm going to try to commandeer some of this RCS that will no longer be necessary, because we want our probe to be full, and we're at a disadvantage already because before I really thought about it, I didn't make a backup of this, and I recorded that video with no image, and that ended up costing us some RCS fuel, which, I mean, okay, worse things can happen, but you don't like it when that happens, right? I mean, you don't like it whenever you spend the time to dock, and not only do you screw up, but you end up, putting yourself at a disadvantage because of it. But I mean, these things are wont to happen, right? So I learned a lesson that, as a guy, who has done a lot of system administration and stuff like that, I learned particularly the lesson that, everybody should back their stuff up, even if you think you're invincible or whatever, as my boss would say. And really, I just want this thing to be balanced so it doesn't spin wildly out of control whenever we, there's our monopropellant. That one, it looks like, needs the remainder of what we have. I mean, on the flip side, we didn't use nearly as much monopropellant as I thought we would. And that's actually a rather nice thing. Anyway, I think we're ready to attempt docking. So what we could do here is we could use the remainder of that RCS fuel to and use the remainder of that to get our thing out of the way, and then we'll burn retrograde from there, which means we need to move over here. So we're probably out of fuel. I don't know, it looks like we still have a little bit. I mean, RCS really does go a long way. But we're gonna, fire this thing and just quickly switch back. And that is actually a really cool shot. It looks like it's firing into the sun, which I think is really cool. And we got this other thing going on here to where we're just a slight amount off. Now, we could bother refueling this, but I don't really think it's necessary. We have plenty of fuel here. I mean, I guess I could save just in case, but I mean, we have more than enough fuel to get us to where we need to go to. Because look, we have 381 out of 460, so the question is then, do we want to, or how are we going to make this easier on us? And the thing that I've found here that I always sort of forget about, and I probably invariably will, is that, the one thing that makes this easier in terms of, in terms of docking is that we both need to not only have the same, position, the same orientation as well, because if we don't, then the way that this game models physics, which I mean it does it in a fairly, a fairly accurate fashion, but the way it models physics, we want to be facing parallel to the other docking node, or at least perpendicular. We don't want to be at a weird angle because that will introduce weird rotations and such, and it'll make our RCS just a little bit less efficient. So I'm going to bring this down some. Again, it may not be worth getting this absolutely, perfect, because there really is not much of a way that we can count on perfection, to help us here. All we want to do really is we want to reduce the chances of wobble. And so we want to get ourselves in the proper orientation and the proper position. And when we do that, then I'm sure we'll find that that I need to bring down my Y significantly, because it is rapidly going down, and it's going down a little bit too much for my taste. I mean, we're going to hit this thing a little bit sooner than I'd like. But we are, at least in the situation to where we're doing pretty well. We are a bit wobbly, it seems, and I should kill what remains of my Y velocity pretty soon, because we're going to drift, and that's just sort of an inevitable fact of life. I'm turning it off of fine control real quick, just so maybe what I should do is I think I will get this other ship pointing parallel. And so there's really, I don't know if there's much of a good way to set this up without it drifting. Although that looks to be pretty good. And our X does need a bit of work. We need to take care of our X. That's, in most contexts, that is not a good sign, right? How often is it that you say, you know, oh shit, that is a thing. You know, I'm glad for once that I've got nuclear engines on there, because those nuclear engines kept me from speeding off into the distance. I actually did this, you know, one time when my friend Nathan came on, and I was like, you know, I was going to say, hey, you know, what's up? So, for those of you who use Steam, you probably know that, I mean, you probably have an inkling that, oh shit, we're pretty far off, but you probably know that, the Shift-Tab is how you bring up the chat window or whatever. And so, you know, I was sitting there thinking, you know, I'll just hit Shift-Tab and talk to him real quick. And then, of course, I neglected to realize that Shift-Tab also happens to trigger the engines. And so, I didn't realize it until after the fact, right? Until after I blasted way off into the other direction. And that was a bit of a problem for me, because I'd ended up shooting like 200 meters off the course, and nobody likes it when that happens, you know. It's just one of those deals, I guess, to where if you get too, you know, used to, if you get too used to the controls like that, then you know, you end up in this situation to where you royally screw up and you wish you quick saved before you did anything, but at the time it didn't seem immediately obvious that you should, so you didn't. And that is part of, you know, the trouble with, I guess, the shift key. Of course, I guess what I really should have done is I really should have used, like, right shift. I don't think right shift triggers the engines, but, with that having been said, we need to, you know, we need to get, our axes lined up, our orientation. And I wish, again, there was a good way of doing this, because, I mean, it just seems like, it seems like, you know, it's very difficult to keep these two aligned. But I think that is the best we're going to be able to do, and so I'm going to go in for the kill here at 1 meter per second. I'm going to tweak my Y just a little bit. I think we could stand to have a negative Y here. And we are, you know, getting pretty close. Hopefully this will mean that our docking or whatever will be fairly complete. I'm hoping that we're not going to end up in this really strange situation where we're so far, you know, I don't know if it's just the fact that, like, I think that is actually pretty good. I'm gonna do that. Let's see, are we docked? There we go. How did we do? We have a bit of an angle, but I mean, it's going to be okay, I think. So, I'm gonna start by moving this thing to the south. We have our target somewhere around here. We moved a fair amount away, so we need to, of course, get back. And the way we'll do that, of course, is we will, I guess first of all, we'll null out our velocity because, that is going to be a huge pain in the ass if we don't. So we're going to use a little bit of this fuel. Normally I would use RCS for this, but, you know, there's no point in it. And I guess maybe that's not the best idea. Maybe. Oh, yeah, I guess that would explain it. I'm not pointing. I'm going to control from here. I guess. Did we. I'm assuming we must have put our crew back. Or maybe I did it in one of the other episodes. I'm going to use RCS to get in line because we're moving a little bit too far away now. So yeah, let's. I figure if, you know, we get this thing down to a reasonable X. Again, out of context, that sounds completely unreasonable, right? Whoever heard of a reasonable X? But, yeah, we're going to. If I. You know what? I need to take off flying control. That would probably help just a little bit. And yeah, we'll just burn towards our space station. At 1 meter per second. And hopefully get back in line with it. See, this went phenomenally well the last time I tried recording this. I'm still a little bit irritated that, you know, because of what is apparently, you know, user error, that, you know, I lost the entire shebang. There's a saying amongst system administrators, which is problem exists between user and keyboard, and that was definitely the case here. I mean, I might be able to get Open Broadcaster for the first one, but not for the second video. I guess if I, although I mean, it is one of those deals to where you would profit from being able to easily tell whenever recontrolling from there good. You would be able to easily profit from being able to tell when the video is started, but I mean, I think that, to tell you the truth, I mean, Open Broadcaster actually does a pretty fantastic job. Their development team is fairly fairly giving, and so I really can't slam them too much, because I mean it's unfair to. I mean, I develop software for a living, so I mean, you can't really. I know that things happen, and it's not really, you can't really blame them for whenever things go wrong, especially if you don't pay for the software. So I mean, it's not really that huge of an issue. I guess more than anything though, it does the part that does sort of irritate me, and again, this has nothing to do with Open Broadcaster, is that this is a relatively involved you know process. Getting these things to dock, and so like I definitely wanted to. I mean, I guess I could have waited. It's one of those. It's one of those deals to where like you end up like recording something or doing the same thing over and over. It does start to irritate you a little bit. Whoa, whoa! I need to kill my X velocity. Uh, and that is in no way saying that I need to kill my X. But yeah, I guess what I was going to say at any rate is, it does. It is one of those things that it does irritate you when it first happens, and there's really not too much that can be done about it except to, I guess, pay more attention next time. And I mean, they again, it's pretty good software, so I mean, I'm not slamming it. It actually works better than a lot of other recorders I've used. Um, and I mean, the fact that it works with, in this case, on Windows DirectX, like, like for Linux, like there's Record My Desktop, which is nice because it can record OpenGL. And that is, that's pretty cool. And for DirectX, there are a handful of recorders that can, do otherwise. Like they can record DirectX directly from the frame buffer, but the issue is that why am I not moving in this direction I want to move in? Move, damn you. But the issue is Am I wobbling? Or is this thing just not caught up? What was I talking about? Oh yeah, so the issue is that, you know, they are incredibly expensive. Well, they're not incredibly expensive, but, some of them, like for instance, Fraps, when I used it, Fraps has this very slight issue of, if, you know, you decide you don't like it, then... Oh, shit. No wonder I'm not going anywhere. I'm using the wrong keys. You know, Fraps doesn't seem to cleanly uninstall itself. Because, you know, I found that Fraps really wasn't for me. In the sense that, I don't know, it just didn't seem to work the way I wanted it to. And so, you know, I'm cool with, you know, shit, not again. This is, wait, how fast? This is seriously beginning to irritate the shit out of me. Why am I always hitting that? That key. I guess it's because it's next to shift. Which, you know, it might actually be nice if the devs are watching this. Can you please remap Find Control from Caps Lock to something else? Because that is really annoying. I mean, I don't expect that the devs will be watching, but I don't know. They're an indie company. Maybe they like seeing the fruits of their works. And I mean, again, it's, you know, I guess in a sense, like, I can't really complain too much because I am using mechanical jeb, which is not entirely kosher. But, I mean, that is something that, you know, I'm sure other people, you know, probably find, a little bit disconcerting. Just because, you know, what really would be nice, and I actually haven't checked this, maybe there is a way to remap the controls. Because if we can remap the controls, then the issue pretty much goes away. But, yeah. Oh, shit. Let's see, how far off are we? I'm just gonna quick save here. I believe we're oscillating just a little bit. Oh wait, we set our target here. Oh, I guess we didn't. Which means we're probably a lot closer in than we thought we were. But I guess at least because the station is, you know, a tube right now, that actually would make things a little bit easier for us. Son of a bitch, what happened here? There we go. Let's see if I can cancel some of that drift there. I mean, I very strongly suspect that, there we go. I very strongly suspect that, no, don't do that. What was I gonna say? That we are drifting very slightly off course. Maybe though, if I, if I bring this in, we won't go too far. And my hope here is that, as we get in closer, because we are going in like 2 meters a second or whatever, or 0.2 meters, we would have probably obliterated the space station if we were going 2 meters a second. But yeah, I very strongly suspect that we will be okay. And we could rearrange this, but I mean, really, that's something I should probably do off screen, because the minutia of rearranging everything is probably not all that interesting. And we're docked. So, we got the hard part out of the way, and I'm thankful to say that this does get easier, believe it or not. I mean, you would think that this fuel tank is probably the hardest part, but it's not. It's that docking thing. And so, in reality, there is really, you can only, um, you can only, deal with that to such a degree. I mean, the main deal is we just want to get out of the way and rendezvous as quickly as possible. So my thinking is that once we switch over, we're gonna set this as our target, set this clampatron as our thingy, and we're going to go over and under and try to maintain the same orientation. So let's just try that now, because we're moving forward when we do that. I don't want to dock with this thing again. What I wanted to do was I wanted to get our Y up, and I think the way we do that is we go negative. This has, to a certain degree, a very confusing sort of, orientation. And you'll notice that the trouble here, unfortunately, there's no engines on this because I keep on hitting shift. But, the biggest trouble here is, we want to move forward as quickly as we can. We want to, bridge the gap, so to speak. And I guess, on the one hand, this thing with RCS on it, like if you attempt to rotate, it turns out being extremely difficult to do so. Um, just because of the fact that, it's the RCS is a little too powerful for its own good, and I should have killed that way long ago. So I think we are, yeah, we're ahead. We want to be, in fact, a little bit behind. By at least maybe like 2 meters, I'm hoping. Would be the best way to deal with this. So, yeah, I mean, this is the hard part. So, the question is, do we have enough in the way of, there, we're nulled out for now, but are we in the way of that space station? I think we are. I think we're going to have to translate to, over here and just hope that we do not hit the space station in the process. That could be very tricky, though. I mean, it looks like we're just scratching the surface of that docking clamp. That could have... So, at that velocity, maybe it couldn't have actually ended up in tears, but... Hey, it could happen, right? I mean, at any rate, you do want this, thing to sort of dock in the same, general vicinity. So we'll just bring this down just a little bit. Our Z is fine, it looks like. That's one of the things about flying this particular spacecraft in particular is, it is very agile and it is very difficult sometimes to navigate. But I mean, it's the trade-off we make, right? I mean, we wanted something that was fairly lean and had some pulling power, so that's exactly what we gave ourselves. And I'll just bring this down to... I think the X is going to be the first one we're going to get on, get set up, And that'll be cool. That'll mean that, we will, be in position. So the next still is, I think 0.6 is golden. I think we'll do that. The next question is going to be, are we properly rotated? And it looks like we may be. We're not going to have the best rotation, but, it'll work, so, now we just want to get this thing down as low as we can. And I guess get it centered. And so, yeah, we'll be hitting that pretty soon, I reckon. Although we're already a little bit off course. So the question is, what can we do to change that? I mean, obviously, I think at this point, you know, once we get this down to such and such a, you know, a degree, we're just gonna go straight for the kill. I'm gonna save her at -10 because, you know, it's... anything could go wrong. And I think at this point it makes sense for us to just go ahead and dock this thing because it looks like we're properly oriented. And we're going to do a fairly complex maneuver here. I mean, it's not terribly complex, but first of all, we want to kill our X velocity. So we'll just bleed that down to 0 or whatever, so we don't spend too much more time drifting away. And we will do the same with our Y. And our Z, as a consequence, is probably okay where it's at. But now we want to face north, I believe, because our docking port is going to be at the south, so north is going to be the place to be. And if we're lucky, we will get this thing more or less oriented the way we want it to where, you know, those two docking ports line up with the other two. That's going to be a hard call to make, though. I mean, it's definitely, we do want to get our Z in the negative. So, you know, we'll just do that. And, you know, I actually want to get our Z out maybe to 5 meters. Or maybe even 3 would be sufficient. I mean, it's... we do want to get in as close as we can, but... you know, it's... we do have to remember that we do have that thing on the docking port, and we want to, we'll just bring our X over just a little bit. We'll get our Y up and going. We have a way to go with both. I'm gonna adjust them one at a time, I think. I think fine control is in order here. Or it's time for fine control to go off, rather. So, let's see. We'll just get this down to, where it's damn near perpendicular. Z needs to go. And this is about to cause trouble for us, I'm sure, so I'm going to slow down our approach. because it should be slowed down. I mean, we don't want to ram into the space station with all this precious fuel. Let's see. And we will just, we'll get this down to, we'll get this down to pretty close to center. And let's see, how close can we get this? Are we nulled out? I think we are. So yeah, we're probably going to drift a little bit, so we need to now handle our, need to handle our other velocity here. And we are, at this point, we do need to consider, the fact that we are drifting a fair amount away from our original target. But we also don't want to dock with this thing on here. I mean, it is a bit of a pain in the ass when that happens, because we're explicitly trying not to dock this way. Let's see. Now we can lock in this. I think our X will be good to lock in. And our Y will be good too. And 0.2 meters is definitely good enough. So let's see what we've got going on here. Yeah, we are drifting very slightly into the negative, and that needs to die now. We'll just save here. I want to bring us in maybe about 3 meters in. It looks like drift is going to unfortunately be part of our deal here. I just want to get within like maybe 3 meters, because that will give us time to quickly slip out of the way so we can finish the docking maneuver. And we aren't really drifting all that much. So let's see. I think now I should be concerning myself with maybe slowing down just a little bit. And we will now try this real crazy maneuver here. So we're pointing forward. We don't want to do Z. And we want to undock. So we're going to do that. We're going to undock this thing. It looks like our orientation on our space station has changed very slightly. But, you know, we're going to move this thing out of the way, and then we'll bring down our velocity or whatever. And then I guess too we want to null out our velocity here. And that means that when we go here, we are very slightly off center, it looks like. Maybe not enough to be a much consequence. In fact, yeah, I mean, that looks pretty good. We're not going to bump into the thing, we just want to... I guess we want to get this thing more or less aligned the way we want to. And that is... that is going to affect us a little bit. We are slightly off in the X position, although we didn't control from the stocking port, did we? Nonetheless, we did drift just a little bit, so what we'll do is we will point in the direction of this thing. It's kind of hard to tell if we're lined up or not. The only way I guess we'll really be able to handle that is if we just go straight in for the kill. Because what we want to do now is we want to we want to keep this thing, you know, fairly in line. And you know, it's hard to tell. I think we may actually have a pretty good chance of... well, no, we're not correctly oriented though. That's... I'm just gonna turn off RCS and get this thing up to the you know, keep it straight. Because the you know, the thing keeps on moving. We have a good approach. We just need to keep ourselves centered. And I wonder if we're just a little bit too off-center here. Yeah, I think we're coming in a little bit too fast. Mainly because I'm having trouble keeping that orientation. That is an issue because I was being rather stupid about this, I think. I was, you know, I was pointing at the target when I was making these corrections, so we're off now. It's nothing we can't correct, of course, but we are a very slight amount off, and we have to rectify that. And so we will take care of that. There we go. Our Y is too high now, I think. Now as for our X, I think with our X we're just going to oscillate just a little bit. I mean, I think I'm getting a little bit too impatient here. Because we're oscillating more than we should be. You see, it was nice and clean last time. Our orbital insertion, or I guess not our orbital insertion, but you know our whatchamacallit, our docking thing up a jigger that, you know, it does stuff like. And now that I look at it, we can very possibly adjust our, you know, our orientation very slightly. Although I think, again, we can't be perfect about this. So I'm just gonna go ahead and attempt to dock this, because I mean, this is as good as it's gonna get in my opinion. That was a pretty good docking, so yeah, I mean, I guess what I'll do is I will just maybe, you know, I'm not even sure if I should bother putting this thing back up. I guess I could, just for, you know, a sort of proof of concept. Not that y'all haven't seen plenty of docking already. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm sick of it. Yeah. That wasn't what I meant to do. And y'all tell I'm getting a little tired. I mean, that's okay. We'll get this thing docked, and then I will stop the video, and hopefully it will record this time, because I'm actually rather satisfied with the way that it came out. So we'll just go ahead and see, what are we doing here? We're gonna move this thing up. And hopefully get it in the proper orientation. Not too far back like I've just done. So I've gone a little bit too fast here. I mean, you do this enough times, you know, like it does get a little bit old after a while. We'll kill our velocity there. You know what? It might help if I turn it off of fine control. And we'll just start to, I guess, drift downwards as we, you know, take care of our x velocity. And of course, we want to go in the right direction for that, not the wrong direction that I was going. And so we will, you know, we'll get this thing taken care of, and that actually is not going to take too terribly long. In fact, I am going way too fast. And we're bound just to be off by a little bit. We're gonna have to correct for that later, because I guess MechJub just hasn't caught up to it. Although, you know what, we'll get this thing down and going. And then we have our Y to think about as well, so yeah, we'll just leave it there. So what do we have here? Oh, you know what? It would probably help if we were in the proper orientation. It would probably also help if we kill our, velocity pretty soon. Because we are getting pretty close to the point where we're drifting very slowly off the course. It looks like we're oscillating too. And not only that, it looks like we actually went a little bit too far. I mean, this thing is a little bit too powerful for its own good. And shit, I hope this means that we're just going to just barely tap the station. I didn't even realize how close we were. I was so focused on getting, my Y taken care of that I hadn't realized how far off I was. Let's see. Oh, no. There we go. It's now or never. And it is now. So, anyway, this has been Dilord Root. And, I suppose I will see y'all next time.